Marvel Age Star Wars. My name is Sean. I am here with Brooks.
Hey everybody. Please don't be alarmed if you see our faces.
Yeah, these faces are supposed to be here. These are our real faces.
Yes, I know it, and they are alarming. They're not.
Yeah.
It's Halloween. This isn't our normal face. This is our ugly Halloween face. Yeah.
And we'll probably just keep them afterwards, just for consistency.
Well, it was like 12 hours of makeup to get me looking like this.
Might
I don't
as
want to
well
do that
just
again.
Sleep in it, I guess. From now
you got
on.
a skeleton behind you. It looks like so.
Oh yeah, Morty is not there for Halloween, but he does help.
Is that some kind of pygmy that you killed in a past vacation?
Painted his wooden skeleton.
Alrighty. So, welcome to Marvel Age Star Wars. We're going to do something fun today, something that was suggested by a viewer.
Yeah, different. Not just different because we're showing ourselves on the screen, but it's a good episode to start because we don't have as many illustrations in this one. We're going to actually delve into the world of the comic book letters column.
Yeah, and Star Words.
Star Words, yes.
Very, very clever on their part.
I probably should do that without bumping my mic.
I wish they had used a less goofy-looking font. I tell they just kind of were having fun with it. But
my favorite part is that they hyphenated it like Spider-Man. Like, just in case.
They hyphenate everything at Marvel. I'm going to tell you something.
Yeah,
that
they were like,
really
I don't
annoying.
get this Star Wars. I don't even understand.
If you're like searching on... You're searching on some site, some comic shops and stuff, and their search engines aren't very good. You type in Spider-Man, you get nothing. It's like, man, do I really have to put the hyphen in everything?
Yeah,
but go ahead.
Two words together unhyphenated. That's like, is it supposed to be a Spider-Man or a spider and a man together? I don't understand. And then without the hyphen, just one long word.
Yeah, don't just type in X-Men. They'll be like, I don't know what X-Men is. It's X-Men.
Yeah, the worst parody I ever saw was just called Jmin. And it was spelled out, same font and everything, X-Men, just without the hyphen. And it looked exactly like X-Men. Like, they were really trying to make their bones by getting sued. That was their concept.
Well, that's an interesting business plan.
Yeah.
Maybe we should try that, get some viewers.
Yeah. How'd it work out for them? It's like, I don't know. No one's heard of that until you said it just now, so not great.
Now 14 more people have heard of it.
Yeah, check out Jimin. Yeah, go ahead and Google that.
It's a slow burn, but it's working.
I had it at some point, but I don't think I do anymore. My
comic. So we're starting with issue 6. No, issue 4.
This will be number 4.
4, which is still part of the actual movie.
Yeah, they were still doing the adaptation of the first film in 4, but that's when they... And sometimes comics do this where they'll send out early copies so they can get letters back in time for issue number 1, but it's not uncommon for a comic book. Or especially
that
back
doesn't
then,
make any sense.
Especially they were in a crunch to get Star Wars out. Yeah, they had a real crunch to get the issues out before the movies, so they had even less time probably to prep to try to get some feedback before the regular readership ever saw the book. So issue 4 being the first letters column makes sense.
Did you ever write a letter to a comic?
I did.
Really?
I should find it. Not to Star Wars.
I would love to see that. Did it get published?
Yeah, I should find it.
Did?
It's in one of the old Nightmare on Elm Street comics when Innovation did them. I have to look at that. Because I was thinking about that the other day. I lost my copies of those, and I just recently rebought them. And I was like, I should look. I don't know what issue it was, but there's an issue of this that has... Because I had a pen pal for a while from someone in, like, Australia. Wrote me from my letter, and we wrote back and forth for a while.
Wow.
That was a different time.
Well, there you go. I've never done it because I just assumed they wouldn't publish it. And also, I don't have anything interesting to say.
Yeah, also,
obviously,
I'm not a terrible nerd, Sean.
Yeah.
I'm not a
some of the letters I've read in other comics are, like, cringy.
I never felt like I had a lot of useful suggestions for the creators of the Nightmare on Elm Street comic book that needed to get out there. But it was different. It was like the internet was not a thing at that point. So that was that was your engagement. Like, it may have existed, but I mean, this would have been, we're not talking about the 80s, but this would have been like the late 80s, early 90s.
Are you talking about the Nightmare on Elm Street one?
Yeah, when I wrote...
I thought you Yeah,
the
okay.
letter. But this, yeah, when Star Wars was out, this was the internet. This was what you posted on. This was the literal comments section, and it was in some places just as vicious. It'll be fun to see because it's been a while since I've read through some of these. But some people are, don't hold back. They're like, "Hey, you guys, you suck." and,
I don't
and
even
they would
think there
just
were any fanzines at this early of a stage.
It's hard
So
to say. There were
if you wanted
probably
to,
a few fanzines because I think the convention thing had already kicked off. So there were a few, like probably Star Trek based kind of things like that.
yeah, but I meant for Star Wars.
Well, no, of course
I mean,
not.
this
The
is
movie.
issue 4.
Yeah,
So
I mean, we'll see. One
this
of
is
these
the
issues,
first.
there is an ad for. We'll have to show it, but there's an ad for the fan club, and that was the start of it because it actually did have Bantha Tracks, which was the fanzine, the official.
This is like the letters in this one are probably some of the first actual,
Yeah, the first feedback
public
anybody ever
responses
said something
that we,
publicly.
yeah,
that is
there
cool.
wasn't
That's
a film
true.
critic or something. So, how fun!
Yes.
Issue 4, Star Wars. What do we got?
So let's see. Yeah, it was no surprise to Roy and Howie that Star Wars #1 generated a light year's worth of wildly enthusiastic mail here at 575 Madison Avenue. Nor that just as these words are penned, the Hollywood trade papers, Daily Variety and The Hollywood Reporter, have given George Lucas's spectacular film some of the most unreserved praise we've seen in a long, long time. What did surprise us... Wait for that damn truck to go by. What did surprise us was that somebody finally talked to Ye editor, Roy
Ye
Thomas.
editor.
I
Oh
love
my God.
that Stan Lee started all that nonsense.
Yeah.
When's everybody got to talk like an asshole? Into changing the title of a letters page after he dreamed, I guess, one up. It says on up on the thing.
Yeah, nice editing.
Sick. Yeah, aren't
I'm gonna
you
write a letter.
the editor? Yeah, where's my no prize? Namely,
Let's see, 575 Madison Avenue. I'm writing one right now.
yeah,
Where's my phone?
dear septuagenarian Roy Thomas, who probably
40
still
years ago,
lives
You
in
done
the office.
you done blew it, man.
Yeah,
You done played yourself.
way to fail, dummy. All right. After your dream went up, namely Mark Ernst of Canterbury, New Hampshire, sent the suggestion Star Words. So there it is.
So even that they didn't come up with. They actually had a letter sent in. You should call it Star Words because that's not obvious enough a pun.
Well, I'm impressed with it. But see how he didn't suggest the hyphen. That's their little flair.
Yeah. Well, otherwise they'd have to pay him some kind of royalties probably.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when Roddenberry wrote lyrics to the Star Trek theme. It's like, right, now no royalties for Alexander Courage.
So these are really chosen at random? That's interesting if that's true. I don't think that's true.
I doubt they're randomly chosen. I mean, I would think, because otherwise, I'm sure they filter out ones where some people ask the same things or make the same comments over and over. They wouldn't just show 10 in a row of people. So let's see.
If Star Wars the movie is half as interesting as Star Wars the comic, I'll have to go see it despite the price. Was it super expensive to see? Not normal movie price?
Yeah.
3PO and R2 stole the show. I'm looking forward to seeing them on the screen. How fun that
This
this
is
is before they've
fascinating.
seen the movie.
Well, this was the point of getting the comic book out. This was what merchandising was all about. They deliberately, like, you got to get a couple issues of this out before the movie comes out because that's the whole point.
But
It's
it kind
so
of
weird
spoils
now.
the
Like
story.
the comic book, I
Right.
had it. Well, I mean, in terms of the comic book, it works out almost perfectly because only 2 chapters come out, so they get a little tease, but it barely gets into the story. We're in Mos Eisley by the end of issue number 2.
So like
that's a good tease.
I
But the
admire
book's
that
been
she's
out for 6 months, so the whole story's out there already.
This is Ann Nichols from Sierra Visa?
I guess so.
I thought it was Vista. I don't know.
Would have thought
Arizona. It'd be fun to see if we can contact some of these people and see. We read your letter on the YouTubes.
So. Yeah, really? Do you want to?
They're like,
do you
"What?"
want to check out my YouTube channel? Like, who is this? What do you mean?
But
Even back then,
I think
they
it's
knew not
fun
to
that
post
she was
addresses.
so impressed with the comic that she's like, if the movie's half as good, like she's going to get blown away when she sees the actual movie.
Yeah, really, because especially like I mean, I love the old comic, but some of the artwork is kind of phoned in on that on those original issues.
I
So it
mean, you
is
see
kind of funny.
Vader in person in the film versus how they draw it, and you're like, wow, that looks amazing. The space scenes, the
Well, just to say
the
R2 and
ships.
3PO stole the show, it's like, wow, you just think that narratively then. Like, there's no performance or anything behind it without, like, Ben Burtt sound engineering. Like, that's pretty awesome.
They haven't heard Anthony Daniels yet, so we'll see.
Yeah. Follow up letter. Never mind. Yeah, I would love to see that. And Nichols says, saw movie. It sucked.
Yeah. And am now burning comic.
Yeah. Comic now sucks too. Can't not hear that voice.
No, I like Anthony Daniels, but
Oh yeah, no, I love.
he's very proud of his performance.
And when I was a kid, we loved C-3PO and R2-D2. See, this one comes from Vincent McCallion of New York, New York. Incredible, fantastic, absolutely magnificent. That's just what Star Wars is. When I first got the comic, I was doubtful about its being called the greatest space fantasy film of all, the movie that is. Because after seeing Logan's Run and then reading the comic, I didn't think anything could even hope to match it.
Oh
I
wow,
love that bar. Like, didn't think
that's
anything
like.
would ever be better than Logan's Run, the film or comic.
I mean, nothing against Logan's Run, but I guess this is painting the picture of what the world was, the
Love the
sci-fi
film.
world, when
Had
Star
some of the
Wars came out.
comic when I was a kid, but it is funny to see that yeah, like you said, like that was the world of sci-fi when just the silver like guy they wheel that robot out. You remember that scene where the
Not
killer
really.
robot? Oh my god, it's awesome.
I need to watch that
Fawcett
again.
and what looks like a washing machine. All right, that's a
Gladly, I
great
was
movie.
wrong. Go ahead.
It's definitely sexier than Star Wars. I'll give them that. Yeah, I never really
That's not
liked
in this
Howard
letter.
Chaykin's arc before, but after seeing it in this issue, I don't think anybody else could do Star Wars justice. Again, that's so funny because now Chaykin I think was working on the book in these early issues, but by the end of the adaptation, it's almost name only. Like he's phoning in at the beginning a lot, but I mean some of those like I think a couple of those issues near the end of the adaptation, and then we saw with the Han Solo issues, he just had like an apprentice ghosting the work and his
Yeah.
name was on it, and you can tell it doesn't look like his art style at all, but it is funny for people to say I didn't like Howard J. That's got to rub him the wrong way. I don't, but by issue 4, that's the best work he's ever done. I usually think his stuff is garbage.
So Vincent hasn't seen the movie, I guess.
Well, he hasn't commented on it, I guess.
Has the movie come
He
out
said
by
I was
this
wrong.
point?
Sure, by issue 4, yeah.
Okay, but by the time these letters came in, we'll see if anyone else says they've seen
Hard,
the movie.
hard to say.
It'll
but,
be interesting.
but the first person saw it. So here's the first response. But we weren't comparing Star Wars with either Logan's Run or 2001, Vince. The former doesn't take place in outer space, so doesn't space fantasy, stupid. And quite frankly, what term doesn't seem to us to fit Stanley Kubrick's movie classic at all? That term doesn't.
Fantasy.
Did he
I can see how
mention
it's not a
2000?
fantasy movie.
He didn't
No, he
mention
didn't.
2001.
But he was just talking about I guess, the best sci-fi, which
Yes.
I would put 2001 above Logan's Run for sure.
But I would agree that Logan's Run isn't a space fantasy, but then neither is 2001. So
Right.
2001
They're
is
just
a
sci-fi.
legit sci-fi. Logan's Run is what you'd call a popcorn sci-fi, but it's still a sci-fi. It's not a fantasy film. They're rooted in a world where they're pretending that it's scientific.
Yeah, there's no magic.
Yeah, that doesn't follow, and it's a sci-fi genre as far as the story progression. Like Star Wars follows a fantasy narrative. Like it has lasers, but it's a fantasy narrative. Alright, so if anything, we were comparing Star Wars both as comic and as film to other admittedly fine space fantasies such as Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, and we've got to admit it, Star Trek. Well, again, Star Trek is not a fantasy. Star Trek.
Even then, there was like a thing between Star Wars and Star Trek.
Well,
That's
there would have
weird.
been from the very beginning. Star Trek was popular.
Yeah, but I mean, why can't... I just assumed that people would like both. I think it's weird that they were like, and we hate to admit it, or whatever.
I don't know. Yeah, it's weird that's a dubious association. But again, they're not really. They shouldn't be in the same category because Trek again is trying to follow a science fiction sort of narrative format. It's not. They weren't even trying to do an action oriented kind of thing back then with Trek as much. And we assure you, he meant it sincerely. Let's see. Roy coined the term as one not directly associated with the movie itself, and we assure you, he meant it sincerely after seeing a rough cut, unfinished version at George Lucas's home a few months back. Agree or disagree with him, but he meant what he said. It's like, I feel like you're shutting Vincent down really hard.
Yeah, I don't think Vincent was talking at all about calling it a space fantasy.
I thought
that wasn't the point of what he was saying.
I was agreeing with you.
I was saying I liked it. I thought he did good.
Shut your mouth, Vincent. We'll call it what we want.
It's cool you got to go see the movie at George Lucas's house. That's the kind of stuff that people now would kill for. But back then, it was just part of his job.
What's funny is, Roy Thomas felt a little slighted at first, whether it was, warranted or not. When the movie came out and it was a big hit, Lucas sent out bonuses to a lot of the people that were there at the very beginning, helping to promote various aspects of the movie. But he didn't send one to Roy Thomas. I think Roy Thomas felt like he was more instrumental in helping to promote the movie than he got credit for.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I don't know. He had more of a bone to pick with Marvel than he did with George Lucas because they reprinted the hell out of that comic. And he finally got a little bit of extra money out of Stan Lee over the deal. But George Lucas just proactively gave some people a little extra money, and you're not one of those people. It's like, come on, man, don't bust my balls over it. Let's try and do something nice. I can't go around writing checks to everybody.
This is Mark Morpy. No address given. So, this is Star Wars. I get a feeling of surrealism when I even think about it. Long live Star Wars! That's so. I'm not sure what he's trying to say.
They didn't print anybody's address here, by the way, but I just like where it says no address was given.
Well, they say what city they're from.
So. I guess so, yeah.
So this
we don't
is
have
Star
any
Wars?
analytics.
I get a feeling of surrealism when I even think about it. Okay, cool, man. I don't know what he's saying there.
Of Star Wars. Yeah. I guess that's a feeling that we'll never, even though we were kids when Star Wars came out, we'll never understand. Imagine what it was like for people who were at, a more cognitive age when Star Wars came out. For us,
I don't
Star
think
Wars
I'd get a feeling of surrealism.
Existed. We're like, I don't understand. It makes me somewhat suspicious. What do you mean?
Sure thing, bro.
Let's see. Frank Antonides from Freehold, New Jersey writes, I was very impressed with the first issue of the new Star Wars comic. I found all the characters not only believable, but emotionally moving. I either loved them or hated them, though I must admit that my two favorites were the two deceivingly human robots, R2 and 3PO. Spelled out. I guess they must have started doing that in the comic.
Yeah. I mean, he got it from somewhere.
Luke Skywalker seems to be a young man on a quest to discover what kind of person he is. I can only hope the movie will be as good, if not better, than the adaptation. As it stands now, it really looks promising. That is interesting. So far, you're on board for the comic. You don't even know what the movie's going to be like. So this is a little message in a bottle, sort of time capsule.
Yeah, it's weird to hear from people that haven't seen it yet. Tom Trent, Lafayette, Indiana. This is one of those letters, of which many will doubtless flood in, insisting that you carry Star Wars forward in Marvel Comics beyond the movie.
That's cool.
So they've just read, I guess, the first issue? Is that what they're talking about when they...
Could be at this point, yeah.
And it's like, this is so awesome, you better keep it going. We hope to, Tom. It all depends on reader response and the sales of the first couple of issues, which were on sale before the movie actually debuted. Roy has a zillion ideas for the book's future, many of them based on earlier, unused Star Wars movie scripts by the film's writer, creator, director, George Lucas himself. Is that true?
I don't know, because The only idea they ran with was that Magnificent Seven one, and George Lucas didn't like that to the point where Roy Thomas just decided not to write any more of the comic ever again.
I would love to know what these zillion ideas were based on earlier movie
Yeah,
scripts. I'd
maybe
like
we'll
to
get
see
a hint
that.
at
That's
that
interesting.
as we move forward. Maybe we'll get a little bit of an inkling on that. That'd be interesting to hear. After reading the Star Wars paperback, this is the Alan Dean Foster. This is what I was saying. At the end of 1976, the paperback came out in anticipation of the movie, and it was ghostwritten by Alan Dean Foster. It's George Lucas's name that appears on it. But same deal here. It came out in enough time to try to get people pumped for the movie. So after reading the Star Wars paperback, I was quite happy to see that you guys were adapting it into a comic book. See, wow. For adaptations, Marvel and Roy can't be beat. But you left out some important things. The desolate, lonely place just isn't brought out in the art or in the dialogue. No description of the Sand People either. If I hadn't read the book, I'd be asking, who are these guys? What's the difference between them and the Jawas? And even Luke Skywalker seems different in the comic than from the character in George Lucas's book. That was Abraham Rodriguez Jr. in Bronx, New York.
That is interesting. I haven't read that since I was a kid. I don't remember. I mean, did they give a detailed motivation behind the Sand People?
I'm sure he describes them more than the comic books, but comic books don't have to be that descriptive in the text because they're pictures. But there are some key differences in the book, because if you read the book is like the comic. It has to go with a lot of earlier drafts. But I think they had even less to work with when he was doing the book, because he had to have the book out by end of 76. So there was almost nothing for him to work with but that material.
So imagine the comic hasn't come out, the movie hasn't come out, you're reading the book. So you're seeing Star Wars entirely in your own imagination at this point. You know, how the droids look, how stormtroopers, everything. And wouldn't that be weird?
That first edition...
I've just never had that experience. That'd be interesting.
For those readers, that first edition didn't have the movie poster on the cover or anything. Had that Ralph McQuarrie design with some of the original production art kind of designs on it, and no photos from the movie either. Like when I was a kid, you got a movie based on a book, and in the middle there was a section of color photos that
that
stills
was
from the
pretty
movie.
Typical.
And the first thing I did was just rip that middle right out, and I don't even know what I did with the pictures. I just liked having them.
Just destroyed the book.
Just ripped the book to pieces.
I never did that. I always looked at them, but I never took them out.
I don't know. I was always
Maybe you pinned them to the wall or something. I don't know.
I guess I did. I don't know what I was ever doing. But it is funny to think of that, because some of that early stuff in the book is structurally different than the movie. Like the way they refer to a lot of the early backstory, where the Emperor is kind of a lame duck, where he's kind of lost some of his power, and the governors are the ones that are sort of manipulating the situation because they don't respect him. The hints of that are in the original book, but you don't see any of that really in the movie.
Mm-mm.
So it's kind of funny to see that stuff.
The only thing I remember from reading the book is that in the very beginning, that little quote about being from the Journal of the Wills or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking that was the coolest, mysterious thing that I was like, I wish they'd do something about that in the movies.
One thing that was really fun is, if you were familiar with the movie as a kid, anything that offered additional lore like that was really awesome. You're like, oh, there's this whole thing going on. I mean, you didn't know anything about, well, there were earlier drafts of the script, and that came from that, and then George Lucas just added to the mythology to you. You didn't care. As it does, because, like I said, it adds to the mythology whether the creators intend for it to or not. All these little pieces add part of the lore. Whether or not someone comes back later on and says that's officially part of the canon is irrelevant. When you get exposed to that, it becomes part of the lore to you.
Yeah, I remember just really wishing they would explore that. But then Jedi came out and that was the end. It was like, well, I guess not.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do? That's why, post-Jedi, they came up with a lot of expanded universe stuff, and of course now that's standard. But it's much more fun to see this stuff that came out at the same time as the movies, where these were blanks that nobody had filled yet, not even the creators. and it's fun to see what people did with it. So let's see their response on this last letter. You hit upon one of Roy and Howie's greatest problems, Abe. Even spreading the adaptation over 100 pages, issues 1 through 6, there was much that had to be left out. Only thing is, we think you'll find when you see the movie that the comic book is closer to the spirit of the film itself than to that of the paperback, from which Roy took only a few phrases. He and Howie based the comic almost entirely on the film script, and many of the things you missed from the book aren't in the movie either, including the precise differences between Sand People and Jawas, etc. Movies and comics, unlike straight prose, are visual media. Know how much dialogue... God, editors. No matter how much dialogue they may contain, and they will always tell you less than a book. Though making up for the loss, hopefully, by showing in pictures what books can only suggest. All three media have their own uses, their own problems, their own special virtues, and we encourage one and all to compare movie, paperback, and comic book after they've perused all three.
Yeah, it's reasonable.
Here we go.
Michael, I'm not going to try to pronounce that.
I'm assuming it's Beagle.
Beagle. Upper Saddle River, New Jersey. A lot of New Jerseys coming in tonight. New Yorks and New Jerseys. Branded with the serenity of silent space, crowned with governmental conflicts, and polished with glistening robots, the first issue of Star Wars zapped me with the feeling that even more entertainment will come. Yikes.
I bet the proximity
That's some
here
fancy letter writing.
Probably has a lot to do with their distribution, because they're based in New York. So the early runs of the comic and the first runs probably were distributed more in greater concentration anyway, a little closer to home. Congratulations on Star Wars! Issue number 1 followed the book almost word for word. Putting Chaykin on the art was another good move. I didn't care for his work in Monarch Starstalker and Mark of Cain, but Star Wars was great. One question. You refer to the two robots as C-3PO and R2-D2. Why? As far as I can remember, the novel only referred to them as R2-D2 and C-3PO written out. So I guess they're getting this from the novel, not from the comic.
Interesting.
There's little things like that are interesting to me. I guess it doesn't matter, but who was the first person to actually just spell out R2-D2 and C-3PO? You just made up the numbers and letters for the comic, right?
No.
I love it, man. How
nope.
Weird. Both forms are used in George's screenplay, depending on the situation. It seemed useful to Roy to make certain that everyone understood the derivation of those names, as well as the word droid, so he worked them in.
That's interesting. These are those historical little things that are fun to look at. How there might have been initial confusion about that. I've always just it made sense to me that they'd be spelled out or using the letters and numbers only. It just seemed normal to me, always. But it's weird that some people felt some confusion about that.
Well, it's also interesting to see that fandom was fairly nitpicky about what might feel like unimportant things pretty early on.
I guess that we can't blame our current generation on this. I guess it's just natural.
No, if our current generation has any problems, because we grew up with that kind of nonsense. It's like we've been doing this our whole lives, nitpicking the crap out of things that don't matter. Okay, so that was issue number 4. That was the very first Star Wars. They come close to every issue or so, but they don't always have them in every issue, so it's fun to kind of track it. Luckily, I got these earlier issues. I'm glad there wasn't one in like the first issue, because I don't have a copy of issue number 1. Not an original, like not a first print. I don't know if the reprints would have that stuff in it or not.
That's a good question.
But
I have my number 1. I did something you would consider a sin, and I had it graded, so it's encased.
Yeah, I like it when you had it framed. I support that.
Yeah, but it's not. Anyway, we can get into a debate about that.
Yeah, it's not the grading, it's the slabbing that seems to be requisite. Once they do a grade, they slab it, because then that's the only way to preserve the grade that they determine.
I like the slabbing because it preserves the book too, though it's very like high-tech stuff to keep the book from getting
That's the
degrading over
carbonite of
time.
comics, is what that is, bro. It's the
Yeah, and you can
carbonite of
unfreeze
comic.
carbonite. You could pop a book out of its slab
I like
anytime.
that. Yeah, it's real easy to unfreeze someone from carbonite. Ask Han. He looked fine. He's wandering out dazed and blind
Look,
for half the movie.
the carbon sickness or whatever they called it is temporary.
Hibernation.
Temporary.
The comic, like if you just took it out and all of the colors were faded and you couldn't read anything, it's like it'll return in time.
The idea of slabbing it is so that won't happen.
But the idea of
one of the
slabbing it
reasons.
is that it'll never come out of the slab. Like it'll always be that grade, but who could ever enjoy it?
Well, it's yeah.
I reckon.
It's something that yeah. My
It's
view is that
Steve.
I'm very unlikely to read any comic I have that's real expensive because
I
I'm
guess that's
scared of
true.
messing it up.
But then
You know, it's
my
like I'm
thought
not
is, if
breaking out my X-Men 94 and reading it.
if my thought on that is, if I'm never going to though, why do I have it? Like,
Well, because it's fun to collect things that you don't necessarily want to read. I mean,
I don't know.
it's easy enough to read this stuff. It's not like that's the only way I could read it. I mean, it's easy to get,
I
like
guess.
download them.
I think I just have
Or
to have a relationship with it in some way. Like, I don't think I could ever own something like Action Comics #1 because it's too big a responsibility. Like, you'd have to have that
yeah, that
in
I'd
a
just keep
vault
that in a
somewhere,
bank somewhere.
and
Yeah,
no one could know you had it. Like, because it's too valuable. Like, you couldn't have it in your house. Like you said, you'd have to have it someplace. Like, we might as well sell this off because I'll never be able to enjoy having this thing. It's too big a responsibility. Okay, but that's different.
and Star
different
Wars
viewpoints.
#1 is certainly not that. I mean, you could buy a lower grade copy for reading. If you wanted to read it and just have it for that, then buy a low grade
I'm
copy.
in
But
the
if you have a
market for a
higher
low-grade
grade copy like mine,
It's just hard to find. I mean, I don't want something that doesn't have a cover or something like that. But
Yeah.
the lower grade copies are exactly what I go for because they're not the value that big time collectors look for. So they're not the things that are high priced, but they're fine for me. Like I don't
you
care.
should be able to get one for under $50, I would think.
I just never, when I was looking, never found one.
And there's so many printed that I mean, I haven't looked, but I can't imagine it's that hard to find.
Well,
They
I just
printed a
never
billion
found
of
it
them.
for a price I wanted to pay for it.
Remember back in the 90s when you can get them for $20 all day long? I
That's
used to
what's
have two
funny.
of them.
That's why the bulk of the ones that I have were bought in earlier days where they weren't that expensive, and now
Yeah.
that's when if you had told me that's why I don't have stuff like the first appearance of Boba Fett because it wasn't a priority to me to buy the adaptations. Like that was the
Yeah,
least
I
important
never thought
stuff
that
to
those
me.
would be worth anything.
And like, oh, you should have got that because you'll never get hold of that. Like, not at that price. I'm paying $100 for it. That's nuts.
Yeah, I'm not into that.
So that's more expensive than the first appearance of Luke Skywalker.
That's
more
dumb.
expensive
Or
than number
you know
one.
what? There's okay. This briefly, I'll get into this. Ahsoka Tano or whatever. Her first appearance is like some of the copies are at a grand raw, and I'm like, she is more important than Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, the droids, Han Solo, Chewbacca, Ben Kenobi.
You know why that's not going to last because that's just
I
because
hope
Ahsoka
not,
Tano
because
is
that's-
very
doesn't make any
popular
sense.
right now. You know, the Mandalorian as we speak, it'll be out by the time this video comes out. But as we're talking, the Mandalorian is about to come out in a few days, season 2.
Season
She's
2.
in it.
Yeah.
And you know they just finished up the Clone Wars and she had her big thing in that. So Ahsoka Tano has like sort of risen through the ranks as like a big deal in Star Wars right now.
She represents, I guess, kind of a new generation of fans, too, that don't really care about Luke and Han so much.
Which I think is fun that they were able to mine a character from all of that's exciting in that way. But I don't think
But the
that they'll
values on
maintain over time. Yeah, that's just people that are trying to create a value. Like, ooh, people are really into this character right now. Well, then this costs $1,000. It's like, even though probably part of that is driven by the fact that it's probably a lower print run. Because you're talking about what, some Clone Wars comic? Is that what it is? That
Yeah,
she was in?
it is a
Clone
lower
Wars
print run
Adventures or
probably
some
than the
nonsense?
original Marvel, but the original Marvel is also 40-something years old. I mean, so the attrition rate does exist. I mean, there's a lot of them printed, but how many are in great shape, or how many are even existing still?
It's just because
Anyways,
the fluctuation of interest. Right now, there's a specific interest in that right now, but that's not a sustainable. Don't invest in that kind of nonsense because that's not a sustainable number. $1,000. That's crazy.
If you're out there looking to invest in Star Wars comics, my recommendation would be issue 2. Because right now, so far as I'm aware, it is not worth very much. But that is the first appearance of Han and Chewie.
I would say, as an investment,
and I think lightsabers.
I certainly wouldn't recommend investing in comic books as an investment anyway.
Well, no.
But if you're a collector of comics and you're wanting to acquire comics that will retain like some level of value and interest, I would go with these. We're making a big deal out of the old Marvel Star Wars because they sort of fluctuate. Like, people sometimes don't think much about them, and then you turn around and they're really valuable. And like you said, they're always going to be these sort of legacy artifacts, and they're always going to be the oldest version of the story in comic book form. To me, there's always a value to that. There's always, even if the market fluctuates, there's always going to be historical value to that too. Whereas some of these things will come and go. Like, I have the first appearance of Asajj Ventress in some Mace Windu one shot, but I bet it's not worth anything because who cares about Asajj Ventress right now? But if she popped up in The Mandalorian, people would be throwing that around going, look at this.
Yeah.
We got this going on.
I just don't feel like, maybe because I'm old, I don't feel like a lot of the newer stuff has an iconic, lasting. You look at the first issue of Star Wars, that cover art's been, homaged many, many times.
And it's awesome. It's like we said, it was a time where people didn't know what Star Wars was. These people were writing in thinking it was an adaptation of the book. Like, they didn't even understand that these are related tie-ins to a movie. I mean, they at this point have to understand there's a movie coming out. But you have people who think the book came first, and the movie is adapted from that.
That's so weird. Because even on the book, the one I had, it said based on the movie or whatever.
Well,
the hit movie from. I had a later print probably.
Ooh, I could walk away from my desk right now. I have that original.
I like how you low key humble brag about things like that. It's like,
well, it's not worth anything.
I know. It might it's just funny how you have all kinds of awesome stuff.
But I mean, I want to show. To me, that's the fun stuff to collect. The stuff they're more like historical artifacts. They don't.
But go grab it. We'll pause the video.
Right, I'll show
People
you.
don't have to watch.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna edit it, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
My mic for a minute. There's not a huge deal.
I'm gonna pick my nose for like 10 minutes while you're gone.
All right, step away from camera.
All right.
So here's
pop this copy out.
Since I had to get up, I grabbed a few things. Just here you go. Dewback. Watch this.
Oh, nice.
Boop. Boop.
Is that the new Dewback, or is that
no? This is vintage.
But that's not a vintage Stormtrooper.
No, it's just a regular. That's probably from
Rogue One. So you are
committing
blasphemy, is what you're doing.
Well, I was looking for a Stormtrooper to go with him, and I couldn't find one. I even ordered a repro one where they just do like the 3D prints, and it never came.
Of the original Stormtrooper?
Yeah.
You could have just picked one up on eBay for next to nothing, I would think.
Well, I couldn't find a vintage one. Somewhere I've got a vintage Stormtrooper.
I'll give you one. I've got like a handful of them.
I like this little Rogue One guy. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's cool. They definitely look more posable for
well,
sure.
And he's the real original Stormtrooper. I think he's cool. To go on my Dewback, he costs almost as much as the Dewback. That Dewback was like $15. But there's the original.
Oh, yeah, that's not the one I have.
And
mine is gold.
It looks totally. Yeah, I've got that one too. That one's back when the movie came out, but it does say at the back, soon to be, like, what does it say? Soon to be a spectacular motion picture. But everything else makes it look like, ignore my note tabs, but everything else makes it look like this is just a standard. And you see why, like, Lucas had it ghostwritten but had his name put on it. Like, wouldn't he feel like a jerk if Alan Dean Foster wrote this book and everyone's like, yeah, George Lucas made a pretty crappy movie based on Foster's book.
Ruined that great novel by Foster.
So he had to get his name on that to make sure that the very first Star Wars thing that came out at least had him down as the creator. Oh, here's a couple of things. Neat. Here's a couple of the mass market comic books that they did.
Oh
These
yeah,
collect,
the little paperback ones.
yeah, and these collect stories from the UK comic.
Oh, that's neat.
And you see how they format it.
Yeah.
That one's not even in color, but this one they actually
Oh,
colored.
it's color.
All
Fancy.
of the Star Wars Weekly comics were not in color, so they actually colored that one. But those are pretty cool. That's the actual mass market adaptation of the book.
I've been looking at that online. I kind of want one now.
They're really cool, but that's what I was trying to say. All they did was scrunch the comic down to that size.
Yeah.
So just look, can you even see the
It's
text
almost like
there?
they just Xeroxed it or something.
They did, because here's the special edition, one of them.
Yeah,
one of the treasury edition size ones. And
those are awesome. I like those.
And if you look at the page, that's the same page.
Yeah.
And it's giant. And then they took that same page and they were like, meh, we'll scrunch it down to that size there. Same text, same font size, everything. Like, geez.
So every copy comes with a magnifying glass.
That is not convenient. That's why, like, these other mass paperbacks, they get pretty thick because they're only doing a few panels. 2 panels to a page a lot of times.
Yeah.
Whereas this one is no longer because it's the same exact panel structure. Oh, and just to show you, actually, we were talking about the newspaper strip. I think I said that the Russ Manning strips were never reprinted until just recently. But this is an actual exception to that. The very first, not the one we did, this one, it was the Constancia Affair, which came before it, was reprinted into this, which was like a giveaway comic for KB Toys.
Oh, wow.
So it's only like...
When did that come out?
It was in the 90s. It was during the Dark Horse days. But, like I said, they would mine stuff for
You had to get it at KB Toys?
Yeah, see, this one still has the price tag of nothing.
That's neat.
Because it was a giveaway. But I guess for
I didn't
inventory
know about
purposes, they had to have something on it. Let's see if it actually says 1998, and see how it's formatted a little funky because they just took the Sundays, and kind of stretched them out. And like I said, it's only 16 pages. Yeah, I thought that was really neat too. I just picked that up a couple. Well, not a couple weeks ago, but maybe like a month or so ago. Since we talked last about it, because I saw that on eBay and I was like, "Ooh, that's awesome! I got to get hold of that."
I didn't even know that was a thing. There's so much Star Wars stuff. It's overwhelming.
Well, and the little pockets, like I said, I don't care about Ahsoka Tano's first appearance or Boba Fett's first appearance because those are asterisks. But the things like these big boys right here, or the little mass market paperback, those are fun to me because they're so odd. Or like when they reprinted some of the UK stories in a little mass market paperback, it's just an odd thing. So.
Yeah, it was more fun back then because, I mean, even though there was a lot of Star Wars stuff back then, there wasn't anywhere near what there is now.
No, now, I mean, you have to be a hardcore collector to just resolve yourself to getting all the stuff that comes out. Like people who are like, I read every Star Wars novel that's out there. It's like, man, how do you have time to read anything else then? I mean, they are cranking that stuff out. Even with Audible, which is how I listen to that stuff when it comes out. Like when the Thrawn books come out, I listen to the Audible. But still, I could be listening to audiobooks my whole life and never run out of Star Wars books.
That 2015 Marvel series of Star Wars they did, the first issue had something like 90 different covers.
Yeah.
Different variants.
I'll look for it so we
insane.
can look at it here, because there's one variant that has Jackson on the cover, and it's a fun one.
Was that the one where they're like holding the door
they're
and he's trying to get
inside, and he's like, I know you're in there!
Yeah. Is that one?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
I have that
you have
one.
That.
I don't normally go for variant covers, but I did track that one down because I liked that one a lot.
Yeah, I think I used that in one of our videos.
Oh yeah, we may have talked about that before. That was a fun one. Come on, guys!
But I mean, if you were a collector and you wanted to, like, I need all the covers, like, no way, man. There'd be no way you could do that.
They're just mean in putting all those variants out because that's exactly what they're exploiting, is that need for completion that some people have.
Anyways, I don't want to get off on another rant about that stuff.
So
it's cool that you have that stuff to show.
It's fun. Yeah, I enjoy that. Maybe if we keep our video element to the show, I can bring out some, like, we can both like plan to bring out some items and showcase. So there you have it. A whole episode dedicated to one page of one comic. So that's
to reading letters.
Like, we may have to parse this out into segments.
Now I know we're really innovating here. We're bringing a whole new level of hyped up excitement to the comic scene by reading letters
Two talking
that people
heads
wrote
reading
40 something years ago.
Yeah. Just reading straight text. Sorry, but that's, at this point we figure you either haven't come on board yet and we can still do whatever we want, or you came in early and you haven't left, so either way.
Yeah, and but honestly, these letters are not reprinted. So if you don't, unless you have the copies like you do, or you find a way to download them.
Yeah, I'm going to have to, I've been scanning
I've
them so we can use
downloaded
them here. I'm going to
original
put a PDF
scans
together out of these just for my own, because it is an easier reference to have them all in a single file. It's not difficult, but it's tedious to fish through every issue of the comic to see if there's a letters column in it.
And I've, for this show, so I could use images and compare them to the digital reprints, I've downloaded scans of the original issues, the whole series.
Yeah, it's very cool.
And they don't have the letters. They didn't bother with that.
I don't know why. If you're going to scan every issue, that's so weird. Because if I run into an interesting ad, I'll scan that just so we can
I guess
see
most people aren't, at the time when they were archiving these, that's why they were doing it, to preserve them, I presume. That just wasn't a priority. But I'm just saying the point of this of what I'm saying is that these letters are not available easily, so we are providing something of use, I think, to
historical
fans.
Service. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're interested in the same kind of stuff that we're interested in, that reason, it's fascinating to me. So hopefully you'll find some interest in it. If you're interested in watching us just read the old comics, then you might be interested in watching us go over these.
If you don't collect the old actual physical issues, if you just go back and read, you might even know that there are letters. I mean, or
that there's such a thing. Like this to me is the fun stuff because it gets lost in time. Like most people, I'm sure comic books still do have a letters column, but it's a very different kind of landscape now.
I don't know that they do. I remember reading Saga, and they had letters in it, and I was surprised. I don't read a lot of comics now, though.
I would assume that their letters column is made up of emails and things like that they send.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just the fact that they had that at all surprised me, because I don't see it that much. Mm-hmm. But I only read digital stuff that's new, so I don't know if the physical copies do or not. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah,
let us know what you think.
Direct us, and we'll take your comments and we'll make an episode out of reading them and answering them to show that we've taken nothing to heart.
I do want to do an episode where we skip ahead a little bit and look at the letters about some of the issues we've read, because I want to see what people think of Jackson.
I'm
and
actually
stuff like
on board with doing one of these for every one of the letters columns, so at least maybe at the beginning. Like, since we only covered one, I am interested in, absolutely, when they start branching out into original stories, there's some fun stuff there to see what people had to say about it. So at
let
least
us
for
know
these
what you
early
think.
ones, I think we're going to have to cover some more of these.
Yeah. If you like it, let us know. If you don't like it, let us know. We're probably going to keep making them because it's fun for us anyway. But yeah, definitely let us know. I'd love to hear from you guys. I really would. And
is Star Words at Gmail taken, or could we grab that?
Check it out.
Star-words at Gmail.
Do they let you do dashes in emails?
No idea. I would assume.
I kind of feel like you can't. I kind of feel like I would have by now if I could. I don't know. Let's try it. We'll see before one of our fans sees this.
We'll be back
and grabs it.
We'll check on that off screen.
So, give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us, all the normal stuff people ask for on YouTube, all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, check us out.
And
check out. Obviously, you're seeing this, so you should be seeing the Marvel Age Star Wars YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that channel. Go over to tv8mydinner.com. We have many of our other shows are featured there, as well as audio versions, often of some of the extended audio that we record for this show. So
there's a long, extensive history of podcast that you could check out if you want to hear what we sounded like 10 years ago. More than 10 years ago.
13 years almost, yeah.
Yikes.
It's crazy. Well, it was more than that. It was 2007, July. Was when we first started doing TV at my dinner. But we've done plenty of things since then. We've got
the first Transformers
other
movie.
And yeah, that's true. We talked about Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip and Transformers.
Yeah, back when you hated 30 Rock. I was
well,
like, just
watch
I was just
it.
A fan
it's fine.
Of
Studio 60, so I disliked 30 Rock by
It was just so weird how you and Greg would just go off for an hour. God, screw 30 Rock. It's like, it's fine. Watch it. It's cool. It's fun.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's not the same kind of show.
So
but anyways,
but yeah, so
check out Sean's book on Amazon.
Yeah, The Cosmic Unconscious is on Amazon. That's about the psychology of Star Wars. So even more long-winded takes on Star Wars and the story behind it. And you see a lot of Star Wars podcasts on tv8mydinner.com. Cloud City After Dark is there, so that's a podcast dedicated only to Star Wars that you can see through the TV8 My Dinner webpage.
If you like Star Wars, I think every TV8 My Dinner episode mentions it at some point.
Yeah. We get to a point, like the TV My Dinner breaks down into three main subsets. One is Star Wars, the other one is Marvel, and then the third one, weirdly, is horror movies.
I don't think that's weirdly.
Well, I just think the three don't go hand in hand.
That's just what we're into. I think they go hand in hand. A lot of nerds love horror movies and also love Star Wars.
Well, either way, they're all there if you go to TV.
Now, if you said, classical Japanese poetry or something, I'd be like, yeah, that'd be a little left field.
I don't know. It's a broad
Football.
show is what we're saying. We cover a lot of topics in terms of that kind of stuff. So
check that out, tv8mydinner.com. Check out Amazon, and keep your eyes out for the next video on here.
For more of these, you may see our faces pop up in more episodes now. If this works out, and if
Let
not,
us
we'll
know
just
if
edit
you
out
don't like
we
that.
ever talked about that. We'll just do audio only, and never
we'll get
mention it again.
a lot of comments saying, "Please no."
Yeah, let's have no more of this.
Yes, I think that is quite enough.
Your faces. No.
All right. Until later, my name's Brooks.
I'm Sean.
And it's been nice seeing you.
Snoop.